Hi everyone, this is Gabby from My Thesis Coach, and today I want to talk about the next chapter within the thesis. This is part of my little mini series of what goes into each of the thesis chapters. So today I'm talking about chapter 4, might even be more chapters, but this is the part where you write about the results. So first think about where this is coming in your thesis. So remember, you started with your intro. Next up, you had your literature review. Then you had your research design chapter or your research methods chapter. And now you are coming to your results. So that said, think about what you need to include in this chapter. Here, you need to tell the reader what it is that you found through that data collection and analysis that you did. So, as part of your method, maybe you ran interviews and focus groups and ran a questionnaire. You are now, when you get to the results chapter, telling the reader what came out of those various data collection and analysis methods which you used. So, let me just tell you what's not in this chapter. And this is where people sometimes get confused. So, what is not in this chapter is like an in depth interpretation of what these results actually mean. So, you're not in this chapter going to say 13% of people who wear shorts in summer have dogs. And this is really interesting because it shows that when you wear shorts, you are more likely to have a pet. Sorry, it's a super silly example. But it doesn't do that kind of, it is very interesting because, or this is different to what exists before, or this is new knowledge because it doesn't do that kind of deep implication, consideration work yet. That's going to come in a later chapter. Here, you are just sharing what you found. So, here in the results chapter, you would just say 13% of all people who wear shorts have dogs. That's it. So, let me tell you one more thing about the results chapter, and I'll tell you what doesn't work as well. There are many ways to do this whole thesis jazz. So I want to say there's no one right way, and there are actually ways to be creative within these quite sort of generic structures that we're given to work within. So I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, and I don't want to be prescriptive, but just in terms of my experience, what doesn't work as well is in your results chapter to have a heading that says results from the interviews, and then summarizes everything that comes out of the interviews, and then results from the questionnaires, and then summarizes everything that comes from the questionnaires, and then results from the focus groups, and summarizes everything from those. That doesn't work as well because then the three different ways you've collected data remain quite disjointed. And again, remember, you always want to make it as easy as you can for the reader to understand the content and engage with it. And if you leave it disjointed, the reader is going to do the hard work of trying to figure out how they related, and they may get it wrong. And then, your hard work could be misinterpreted. So my guidance, my advice would be rather don't write up your results like that. Rather, I like once I've done all my data collection, I've analyzed my data and I've got it sitting in front of me, I then think, how do I best write this up so that it makes the most sense to the reader? And it seems to work better when you organize that according to themes, according to categories that emerged, reporting back using the data that you've got, and then reporting it back to the reader in ways that you think will make the most sense for them. So maybe you analyzed your data and there were lots of things about summer. People spoke about summer in the interviews. They spoke about summer in the focus groups. They added points about summer in the questionnaires. So what you would do then is take out all the relevant data or the results from all those different methods and then write them under a main heading that goes like perceptions of summer, for example. And then people might have spoken about autumn in the focus groups and in the interviews, and you would then have a section called perceptions of autumn and share those findings there. So my advice is not to organize your results according to how you collected the data, but rather to organize it according to the themes, the categories, and the ideas that emerged. The last thing that I did say the last thing, but I got one last thing. That's an enthusiastic thesis coach when there's a million more last things to say. The very last thing that I want to say to you is always remember that the goal of this thesis is at some point, the end, to answer the research questions. So when you are sharing your results, remember you are sharing the results now with the knowledge that those results are going to be what you are drawing out further in order to answer your research questions in the end. So always bear that in mind. When you're thinking, what do I include in this chapter? Something that should be guiding that decision is, what actually is my reader going to need to know in order for my answer to the research question to make sense? So I hope that that was super duper helpful. I want to remind you, if you are just starting out on your thesis journey, I have a free thesis starter kit, which is available on the link below. Absolutely free. We'll walk you through the main things to consider when you are beginning a thesis. Other than that, I'm always contactable via my website, which is mythesiscoach.com. Join me on Facebook. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I always love meeting people and hearing about your journeys and supporting you going forward. So I can't wait to do this all again. Let me find my log off button. And yeah, I'll be in touch soon. Cheers.